Go home now. In the bridal waiting room, as I wished my daughter well on her marriage, she abruptly told me to leave. Her expression was far from what one would expect from a bride in her wedding dress, and I was baffled. With a disgruntled twist of her face, she said, "I don't need you in my life anymore," further deepening my confusion. Had I done something to warrant such a statement from her? "You're as good as dead to me, so just disappear." Her previously sulky expression twisted into a malicious grin. It seemed she had hidden my existence from her fiancé because she was ashamed of me. I never intended to live a life that would bring shame. But my daughter lined up numerous complaints against me, blaming me. Although her accusations were merely selfish presumptions. Pointing this out now wouldn't make her understand. I decided to fulfill the bride's wishes. "Yes, I understand. If my daughter doesn't need me, then it's fine." As per her wishes, I decided to keep my distance from her from now on. With that resolution, I left the venue. However, 3 hours later, she called me. I initially ignored the calls, but they were so persistent that I finally answered. She sounded desperate. "Come back to the venue right now. I am Grace." At 55, after divorcing my husband 25 years ago, I've been managing both work and raising children on my own. The reason for the divorce might sound cliché: my husband's affair. At the time, our son, Aaron, was 10, and Hannah was just 5. I struggled with the idea of taking their father away from them. However, my husband refused even to discuss it and left us with just a divorce application. I felt guilty toward the children, but continuing the marriage wasn't possible without considering them, since their father left without a second thought. Whether divorced or not, having an absent father would be the same. Hannah felt a bit lonely without her father, but after a month, she stopped mentioning him. Aaron was actually relieved about the divorce. Apparently, my husband had introduced his mistress to Aaron, thinking he would understand because they were both men. Aaron expressed his disgust toward his father. Aaron is now a lawyer, having been driven by his disdain for his father to help those suffering from infidelity. This year, after a decade with a law firm, he quit and just opened his own small practice. Hannah works in medical administration at a major hospital in the next town. Since graduating from vocational school, she's been living on her own and seldom visits home. While I feel a bit lonely, I'm happy knowing she's doing well. Now that the children are grown and independent, I'm enjoying living alone, often taking shortcuts in household chores. I sometimes settle for delivery or ready-made meals for dinner, and enjoy drinking alone the night before a holiday. One day, Aaron visited and brought me some pleasant news, although it wasn't about him. Surprisingly, Hannah was getting married. I felt a bit upset not hearing it from her directly, but it was undoubtedly good news. I asked Aaron about her fiancé, and he was astonished that I knew nothing. He seemed frustrated with Hannah. Hannah has always been negligent. She'd remember things she needed for school at the last minute, or bring up assignments past their deadlines. Probably, she either forgot to tell me or assumed Aaron would. Aaron sighed as he shared what he knew. Hannah's fiancé is a surgeon at the hospital where she works. They've been dating for 2 years. Given her track record of short-lived relationships, I was surprised that she managed to maintain one for so long. Aaron laughed, suggesting she must be serious this time. After Aaron left, I tried calling Hannah to learn more, but she didn't answer, nor did she call back. Getting through to her is rare, maybe once in 10 tries. But I needed more details. Her fiancé might come for a greeting. and there could be a meeting with both families. If her fiancé were visiting, I'd need to clean the house. And if I were meeting her future in-laws, I'd want to dress appropriately. I tried contacting Hannah several times, but she never picked up. Usually, she only calls during Easter or Christmas to ask about meals, or when she needs money due to financial hardships. She'd come home for holidays if her favorite dishes were prepared, but otherwise, she wouldn't. When she asked for money, I suggested she move back home if things were tough, but she'd refuse and just ask for a money transfer instead. She didn't want advice, just financial help. Hannah works in the town next door. Commuting from home would be financially smarter. But she refuses, so I occasionally help her to ensure she doesn't struggle to eat. Assuming she wouldn't want to hear any nagging, she probably didn't answer my calls. Reluctantly, I reached out to Aaron again. According to him, her fiancé's parents were busy working abroad and wouldn't be back until the wedding day. So there wouldn't be a formal meeting between the families. They planned to handle the greetings on the wedding day itself. Aaron suggested they should at least greet each other beforehand, but Hannah stubbornly refused. She insisted that the wedding was their own affair, and they'd marry regardless of any objections, so greeting on the day would suffice. I could understand her point, but knowing each other as soon-to-be relatives seemed important. Maybe my thinking is outdated? On the day of Hannah's wedding, I hadn't received any communication or invitation from her. But knowing the venue and date, I dressed in a formal dress to celebrate her. Probably, in her typical negligent manner, she thought Aaron had informed me and didn't send an invite. Maybe she planned to but forgot. I had some reservations about whether Hannah could manage being a surgeon's wife. But today was her big day, and I intended to celebrate without any criticisms. When I arrived, I wasn't sure where the bridal room was due to the multiple weddings and the crowded lobby. If Hannah had informed me, I wouldn't have troubled the busy staff. After the staff guided me to the bridal room, I thanked them and knocked on the door. Hearing Hannah's voice, I opened it. She was already dressed in her wedding gown, looking so beautiful in the mirror that I almost cried with joy. "Congratulations on your big day." As I spoke, Hannah's face contorted. I couldn't understand why she looked so displeased on what should have been a happy day. Perhaps she had some anxiety about the marriage, or was worried about getting along with her future in-laws. Pre-wedding greetings and family meetings would have eased such concerns, I thought. But today was her special day, and I didn't want to lecture her. I tried to reassure her with a smile and approached her. But she snapped, "Why did you come? You weren't invited," and forcefully pushed me away. I was shocked. I had never seen her be violent, though she was often harsh with her words. I couldn't believe she would do this, and though I hadn't received an official invitation, I couldn't grasp that she hadn't invited her own mother. "Go home now." My daughter glared at me and said. Her expression was far from what one would expect from a bride in her wedding dress, and I was utterly confused. When I asked her why she wanted me to leave, she twisted her face in displeasure and said, "I don't need you in my life anymore," which left me even more baffled. Had I done something to make her say such a thing? "You might as well not exist in this world for me, so disappear." Her unhappy expression twisted into a sly, malicious smile. "Why would you say such a lie? It's because you were such an unattractive woman that you got cheated on. And we ended up in a single-parent home, living a constrained life." My daughter answered in a rough tone. I had never intended to make my children live a deprived life, to avoid being labeled as just a single-parent family. I had actively participated in school events. I never missed celebrating important events like birthdays or Christmas. And I always gave them an appropriate amount of pocket money for their age. Although it might sound self-righteous, I managed to get both my son and daughter through college and vocational school without scholarships. This was possible because I had been working at the same company since graduating from university, holding a position that earned more than most women my age. Yet, my daughter still thinks we lived a poor life and lacked freedom. The allowance was too little, and the reason I couldn't go to the private high school I wanted was because you were the kind of woman who would get cheated on. My daughter looked resentful, thinking that if both parents had been together, she wouldn't have had to feel this way. She probably thinks that if both parents had worked, we could have afforded a more affluent life. Indeed, the reason my husband left might have been partly due to my lack of appeal. But not sending my daughter to the private high school wasn't because of financial issues. If she had a genuine desire to study something specific at that school, I would have sent her even if it had been a struggle. However, her only reason for wanting to go there was because she liked the uniform, so I simply didn't allow it. I was at a loss for words, never having imagined that she would blame our financial situation. Thinking I was cornered by my silence, my daughter attacked me with a triumphant look. I've worked hard not to end up like you, living a poor life, and making sure I wouldn't be the kind of woman who gets cheated on. From middle school, my daughter had put a lot of effort into her appearance, and she was quite pretty. Unlike me, who only wore simple makeup, she was very skilled at it. She had boasted about never being without a boyfriend. My daughter believed that I was cheated on because I lacked attractiveness. And she has always seemed to think that appearance is everything, despite my efforts to teach her that it's what's inside that counts. She never seemed to understand. People judge by appearances. Thanks to my beauty, I can marry someone high-spec. She snorted with pride. Since I'm marrying a doctor, if it comes out that I was raised in a poor single-parent home, the engagement might be called off. Just go home. But won't your fiancé find it strange that your mother isn't at the wedding? As my daughter continued to insist I leave, I posed a sensible question. She replied, that's fine. It'd be more suspicious if you were here. It seems my daughter has also lied to her fiancé and his family, claiming her parents died in an accident when she was in middle school. She told them that she and her brother supported each other using their parents' inheritance and that she was able to graduate from vocational school thanks to her brother's success as a lawyer. Moreover, she set herself up as a diligent girl who struggled to balance study and part-time jobs for her future. In reality, my daughter has never worked a part-time job. She hung out with friends almost every day after school, and her grades were below average. It's astounding how she could come up with such fabrications. Doesn't she think her lies will be discovered, or is she confident they won't be? I think such lies are easily uncovered. Also, she seems to think that me being cheated on and divorced is shameful. But I've never lived in a way that I consider disgraceful. Every complaint my daughter made was her own selfish belief or whim. But even if I point this out now, she would likely just get angry and not listen. Since today is her wedding day, I'll respect the bride's wishes. Yes, I understand. If my daughter doesn't need me, then so be it. As she wishes, I'll no longer involve myself with her. With that decision in my heart, I left the venue. While I was on my way home in a taxi, my son called. When he asked where I was, I honestly told him I was on my way back. What? Hannah's ceremony is about to start." He was very surprised. But when I explained what my daughter had said, he became furious. "I'm not attending my ungrateful sister's wedding either." He said that and hung up. I don't know if he really went back, but that's for him to decide. When I arrived home, I changed out of my formal dress into something more comfortable and decided to relax. I had cleared my schedule for the wedding, so it looked like I could take it easy today. I poured some tea into my favorite mug and settled down to relax. About 3 hours after I got home, my daughter called. She had dismissed me as unnecessary, saying she didn't need me. I was angry too. Even as a mother who cherished her, being spoken to that way was infuriating. I have emotions too. Especially now, I didn't feel calm enough to talk, so I ignored the call. But she kept calling over and over, so reluctantly, I answered. Before she even confirmed it was me, she blurted out something incredibly selfish. "Come back to the venue right now." Why? The ceremony should be over by now, shouldn't it? I couldn't understand why she would insist on me coming back. After the wedding was surely over. After all, it was she who had told me to leave, so why should I return now? However, she kept begging in a near tearful voice. It seems the director of the hospital where she works noticed my absence at the reception and made a fuss about it. Unbeknownst to me, I had been invited by the groom's side. I work in medical device sales. I had been visiting the comprehensive hospital where my daughter works long before. She started working there, so I knew the director well. And the hospital was planning to sign a contract to introduce a very rare surgical robot in the USA, which the groom was going to use. That's why I had been invited to the wedding. Even without an invitation from my daughter, I could have attended because of the groom's invitation. But there was no sign of me at either the wedding or the reception. The director, noticing this, asked the venue staff to check the guest list. My name was already marked as checked in. However, even though all the hospital staff invited to the wedding searched the venue, I was nowhere to be found. The groom and the director were perplexed when a venue staff mentioned, "If it's that person, I guided her to the bridal room earlier, so I saw her leave." Now my daughter was being questioned by the groom and the director. Furthermore, the absence of her brother, who was supposed to have supported her all along, put her in a difficult situation. After being subjected to my daughter's unreasonable anger, I no longer felt like celebrating for her. However, I couldn't ignore my professional connections. Reluctantly, I decided to head back to the venue. My daughter sounded relieved and thankful. But even if I went to the venue, it wouldn't help her. If her lies were exposed, I would only tell the truth. My daughter would learn firsthand what happens when you care only about appearances and neglect your inner qualities. As I was getting ready, I received a call from my son, Aaron. It seems that my daughter, Hannah, had also called him asking for help. Although he was angry and had said he wouldn't attend the ceremony, it seemed he couldn't completely ignore his sister's plight. Aaron was waiting at a cafe near the venue, ready to attend the ceremony if Hannah apologized to me. However, as the time for the ceremony and then the reception passed, Hannah did not contact Aaron. It's unlikely that no one noticed the absence of the bride's brother. Hannah probably covered it up with some plausible lie. I sighed in exasperation at my daughter's continual lying. Aaron sounded frustrated on the phone, saying, "I don't think Hannah has any intention of apologizing. You don't need to go either, Mom." But because of my work connections, I had to go. When I told him this, Aaron said he would come to the venue with me. so we decided to meet in front of it. This time, I wore my business suit instead of the formal dress and hurried to the venue. I met Aaron in front of the venue and we proceeded to the bridal room from which I had been ousted hours earlier. Upon opening the door, unlike a few hours ago, I found Hannah out of her wedding dress and in casual clothes, along with the groom and the hospital director. I bowed to the groom and the director, apologizing for leaving after being invited. The director asked why I had suddenly left. I was told to leave by my daughter. I was just fulfilling the bride's wishes for her special day. The groom and the director, who had been told that Hannah's parents had died in an accident, looked at her suspiciously. I reintroduced myself as the bride's mother. Then, Hannah started to make excuses. No. This person is like a relative who took care of me. But Aaron interrupted her, saying, "She's our mother who raised us single-handedly." When Aaron corrected her lie, Hannah tried to pressure him. She was just a relative who acted like a mother, right? Right, brother? However, Aaron did not cover for her and scolded her for lying. Then turned to the groom to apologize for missing the ceremony. It seemed Aaron and the groom were meeting for the first time. According to the groom, Hannah had said, "My brother is a successful lawyer who travels around the country. And he can't make time until the day of the wedding." And had refused a meeting between the families. That was supposed to happen before the wedding. She probably wanted to prevent the truth about me being alive from coming out through her justice-driven brother. She must have thought that on the wedding day, with all the hustle, her lies would not be uncovered. Even if there wasn't time to talk to the groom, there should have been conversations with his family. It was naive of Hannah to think she wouldn't be exposed. If she truly wanted to erase my existence, she should not have invited Aaron either. But that would break the narrative of siblings supporting each other. So she had no choice but to invite him. "What do you mean? Hannah lied to me?" The groom confronted Hannah. She excused herself by saying she thought the engagement would be called off if it was known. She was from a poor single-parent family. The director was shocked. Poor? Who? The director knew I was a top-performing salesperson in medical device sales, which typically pays higher than normal sales positions. I might even earn as much as the groom, who is a surgeon. The director explained and Hannah said, "But I received little allowance. And I wasn't allowed to go to the high school I wanted because it was private." The groom, looking incredulous, asked how much allowance she received. In high school, it was $50 and in vocational school, $100. But that's gone quickly when you go out with friends. And my friends had much more money. The high school Hannah attended did not prohibit part-time jobs. Her friends simply earned their own money through work, unlike her. Isn't that enough money if you add a part-time job? That it runs out quickly. The groom pointed out, and Hannah looked caught. Indeed, she had told the groom she had struggled to balance study and part-time jobs for the future. It's no wonder the groom is suspicious. Was even the part-time job a lie? I can't trust anything about Hannah anymore. The groom slumped, overwhelmed. Hannah clung to him begging for forgiveness, but he remained silent, head bowed. The director, unable to stand it, asked if there were more lies. Then, in a flash of defiance, Hannah blamed me. "It's all because you were stingy." Apparently, she couldn't see that blaming me, when her lies had been exposed, would only worsen her image. I wondered how she turned out this way, when I had tried to educate her just as well as Aaron. Perhaps her education was the only thing I got wrong. Hannah had grown up just like her father, who was frivolous with appearances and spending, always ready to dip into the family budget when his salary wasn't enough. I had repeatedly cautioned her about money when she wanted to go to a private high school and when she asked for more allowance. But it seems none of it had resonated with her. Whether I was stingy or poor, it was Hannah who decided to lie about it because she felt ashamed of me. I recognize the effort you made to be beautiful, but it's not right to adorn yourself with lies just because you lack confidence. As I pointed this out, Hannah snapped. I didn't lie because I lack confidence. I lied because I'm ashamed of you. Even so, it's wrong to pretend your mother doesn't exist. If she had simply said we didn't get along, it wouldn't have been a lie. If she hadn't piled on lies to make herself look better, she wouldn't have lost the groom's trust. I always tried to remain calm when admonishing my children, especially as they grew older, because raising my voice could lead to escalated emotions rather than a focus on the issue at hand. Surprised by my raised voice, Hannah flinched and froze. Aaron gaped in shock, and both the groom and the director voiced their disbelief, looking coldly at Hannah. Unable to bear the situation, she collapsed to her knees and started crying like a child. I thought to myself, this must be what chaos looks like. Only Hannah's crying filled the silence, and the atmosphere was stark. Then the director spoke up. This might not be the best time, but he suddenly asked me not to cancel the contract for the surgical robot. I understood his feelings, even though it seemed an odd time to bring it up. I had worked hard to bring this rare surgical robot to the hospital where my daughter worked because of the director, unbeknownst to him. However, now that it was known my daughter was related to me, the director felt a crisis about the robot's introduction. The groom also pleaded earnestly. Even though my daughter had just been crying loudly, she seemed to realize how important the robot's introduction was from the director and groom's attitude toward me and pleaded, I'm sorry. It was all my fault, so please, just the contract with the hospital. As it was a work-related issue, I wanted to say my daughter's behavior shouldn't affect it. But this time, I had mixed personal feelings into the contract. It wasn't the director's or groom's fault. But I told them I wanted to reconsider everything once I got back to my company. The director yelled at my daughter, "What have you done?" And the groom was in shock, murmuring, "My career." I decided this was no longer just a family issue but a hospital matter. And I left the bridal room with Aaron. Later, I received a call from Hannah. She had previously dismissed me as unnecessary. I ignored the call for a while, but she kept calling, so I reluctantly answered. "Mom, it's all your fault the engagement was broken off. What are you going to do about it?" As soon as she spoke, my daughter began to blame me, despite having explained her mistakes and apologizing once. She was still trying to pin the blame on me, which was appalling. As I remained silent, she continued to rant about her current situation. It seems she had angered the hospital director, and rumors had spread within the hospital. The male staff, who had previously adored her, now kept their distance. Her already strained relations with the female staff had worsened, and the whispering had increased. Hannah was using her engagement to a surgeon to boost her status and complained, "Now that the engagement's broken off, people will say that women who can marry are winners, and those who can't are losers, right? So, what group do you belong to now, huh? They'll say it's the lowest, isn't it awful?" I was ashamed of Hannah just as she had said she was of me. No matter how much she polished her appearance, without inner substance, it was meaningless. I pitied my daughter for still not understanding. This even after her engagement was called off. When would she ever realize? It's all your fault, Imam, so you need to take responsibility and take care of me for a while. I was shocked by my daughter's absurd demand. Apparently, she was planning to resign from her uncomfortable job at the hospital and return home. But coddling her now would not help her recognize her mistakes. I decided to toughen up, perhaps too late, but as they say, the mother hawk pushes her chicks off the cliff to teach them to fly. Everything you've done up to now has made you who you are. You're reaping what you sowed. My words angered my daughter, who hurled vile insults at me. But I was unyielding in my stance. Also, don't think about coming home. You tried to erase me from your life, so you should live by your words. When I told her I would not support her anymore, she flipped and spoke sweetly. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't mean any harm. She seemed to find it hard to continue working and desperately wanted to quit. But living alone would be difficult if she resigned. She had come begging for money even while earning a salary, likely having saved nothing. She pleaded not to be abandoned. But coddling her would only encourage her not to reflect on her actions. Her behavior on the day of the wedding, pretending to be remorseful, and then showing no actual remorse, was a prime example. I simply told her, "You'd better try your best," and hung up. After that, she called many times, but I did not answer. Later, I learned from the director that Hannah had resigned from the hospital. I apologized for any trouble my daughter had caused him and her ex-fiancé. But the director said there was no need, as the surgical robot would still be introduced as planned. It's rather I feel sorry that I couldn't help your daughter enough to prevent her resignation. The resignation was her own doing. The director didn't truly feel responsible for her resignation. When I assured him not to worry, he easily shifted the conversation to the upcoming surgical robot. Hannah, now unemployed, was struggling with her job search. She had sold most of her expensive beauty products to make ends meet. I heard from Aaron. He also refused to help her financially. She gets carried away too easily when pampered. However, he sometimes took her out for meals. During one of those meals, she reportedly acknowledged how privileged she had been. I hoped she would genuinely reflect and grow into a self-reliant adult woman.